Ooh. Ah. Yeah. Ah. Now this side. Man, my chair is not wanting to cooperate. I shifted it this much, and both sides want to act up. I need to just break down and buy a new chair. Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today on Face Off, we're going to be talking about some Tom Baker Doctor Who. Now, about a week ago, I put the question out in a poll. What classic Tom Baker season 13 story do you think is better? Planet of Evil, or the Android Invasion, or It's Too Close to Say? Because to me, these are the ones that are usually considered the weakest of the season. In what is a strong season, I think you could argue that season 13 could be the strongest season the show's ever put out. I think you could argue it. I'm not saying it is. I'd say you can make an argument for it. I personally, objectively, think it could be the strongest. Lots of masterpieces in it. Excuse me. But for me, it seems like if I was to ask, what do you think is the weakest story in season 13? A story with no bad story, a season with no bad stories. I think a lot of people would usually say either Planet of Evil or Android Invasion. Now, I don't think there's any bad stories in season 13. They're all not just good, but great. All of them are great. Now, I think the weakest is Android Invasion. I prefer Planet of Evil, but some people I hear a lot of times say Planet of Evil is the weakest. Now, occasionally, I'll hear something else, but like, how often do you hear somebody going, season 13's great, but Siege of Doom's a little weak compared to the other? You never hear that. You never hear that. Same thing about Pyramids of Mars. I know that every blue moon I might hear somebody say Pyramids of Mars is overrated. It's not, but I hear people say that occasionally. But I never hear them call it the weakest of the season. Maybe Terror every blue moon, maybe Brain of Morbius every blue moon. But usually if I ask the question to someone, what's the weakest story in season 13? It's usually either Planet of Evil or Android Invasion. 99 times out of 100. 19 times out of 20. So I wanted to know which one of these two stories people thought was better. Now for me, I prefer Planet of Evil. I do. I think it wins on that jungle set alone. That jungle set for Planet of Evil is phenomenal. And I love the fact that they took pictures of it and used it in classes teaching people, hey, this is how you need to design sets. That's pretty cool. I like the story. I like the kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing going on in it. I like that kind of psychic connection Sarah has to a creature in it, although I wish they'd done more with that. Tom Baker is great in it. I love the ship interior design, especially like the bridge control with the multiple levels. I think that's really neat. The captain of the ship's a little two-dimensional with his, I'm the captain! Yeah, we know. But his second in command, the older guy, is pretty cool. He's kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi. Well, maybe not quite Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he's kind of the voice of reason there. I think the way the creature kills people's cool, how they disappear and then reappear all shriveled up. That's pretty neat. I love the design of the actual creature with that kind of Forbidden Planet stuff going on. I like Planet of Evil. Now, to be fair, I also like the Android Invasion. Even though I consider it the weakest of the season, it's still a really good story. Love the location filming for Android Invasion. Really good. Nice having Benton and Harry Sullivan back. I always enjoy seeing John and Ian, so it's great having them back for another story. Their last story, actually. It does have the big elephant in the room of not having the Brigadier in it. I mean, it explains why he's not there, and obviously Nicholas Courtney wasn't available. But it is a bit of an elephant in the room, him not being there. It's kind of a big hole, honestly. Anytime the face pops off the robots, it goes from them looking like convincing humans to looking like dummies with a face popping off. But it's classic Who. You can look over that. The actual villain, I don't really care for their design much. The costume designs doesn't do as much for me. They're okay, but they don't really do much for me. I do love some of the shots in it. Like whenever I'm reviewing it, there's several shots in it. Some of the camera work in it is really good. Like when you see Robot Tom for the first time, it does this weird camera angle of him grinning, and it just looks maliciously evil. And even Sarah's like, "You're not the Doctor." That's really good camera work and really good acting on Tom's part right there. I like it. I do enjoy it. It's just I like Planet more. But let's see what you had to say. This one was interesting. So we're 6 days in, according to this, 6 days ago. So about a week ago, and Planet of Evil and Android Invasion with 134 votes are tied at 44%. I think this might be the first time I've had a tie. And 12% saying that it's too close, it's a tie. It's funny to me that only 12% of the vote says it's a tie, but the actual vote is tied at 44%. That's kind of funny. So 44% think Planet of Evil is better, 44% think Android Invasion is better, and 12% think it's too close to say. That's amusing to me. I expected Android Invasion to win because I thought I was going to have to tell people why they were wrong. I thought Android Invasion would win, but they stayed close. I've been keeping up with how the voting's been going, and they stayed pretty close the whole time. So it's neat to see them like at a dead tie at 44%. That's interesting to me. Let's see what some of you have to say about it. JLBWHO, who is also one of my patrons, says, I really enjoyed both, although it's been a while and I need to perhaps rewatch both. I just remember them both being typical fun Doctor Who, and that's what I like. Bananas Are Good says, both decent, but I prefer the setting of the Android Invasion a lot more. It does have some great location work, which is what he says here. Lots of great location shooting, I agree. And the return of Harry and Benton to cap it off nicely. Sarah, you just pointed out the small flaw in our plan. Our plan is your plan. Well, I'm open to suggestions if you've got a better idea. Such good writing. Problem Being says, love them both. Not the strongest stories, but too close for me to call. That's fair. That is fair. And Shamrock added, oh man, you mean the Doc going all Rocky Balboa Constrictor didn't sway you at all? Balboa Constrictor? I've never heard that one. Yeah, both are enjoyable, but neither is strong. Maybe Planet is for the jungle set alone, which I would agree. Though the ship interior is so devoid of control panels that it made Terry Nation's description of big empty rooms seem busier by comparison. I actually like the set because it has the multi-floor stuff going on. I tend to like the ship set. And then Problem Being agreed, absolutely, the jungle set was phenomenal. It really was. Shamrock Particle also says, I had to vote for Planet of Evil, not because my finger is loaded. See what you did there. But because it feels more original and the Doctor aggressively punches Salamar with an impressively beefy uppercut in a dire situation. The only thing missing is a referee with a board reading round 2 to tell us we're watching a boxing match. The story isn't perfect, but it's easier to roll along with when compared to the other. And let's see, he says, I won't deny that Android Invasion is cheesy, light, and superficial fun, complete with that earthly smell, a line Tom Shirley had lived. But the plot is like a cheap cracker. It looks like that better cracker you devoured last month, but it's very thin and it crumbles when you barely touch upon it. The crawls remind me of the Zygons, except they build replicas and don't shapeshift. Some sound and visual effects are suitably creepy, but don't ask why Crawford never bothered to look under the eye patch. I have an issue with the eye patch thing, too. Talked about that in my review for Android Invasion. Why the Colonel is such a nit, and why Nicholas Courtney did not return as the Brigadier. I'm sure he was just filming something else. And as such, requiring the role be made into the extra crispy Colonel. And incredibly awful dialogue, such as activate the hostility circuits. Harry also looks like an 80s companion because he always wore the same outfit. Ned D says, the Android Invasion is a big guilty pleasure for me. It's extremely flawed, i.g. the whole eye patch thing and lack of any real closure with the Crawl Invasion. But I find it to be very rewatchable. I love the rural setting, and it feels a lot like a classic Avengers 60s TV series, not Marvel, episode. I don't mind Planet of Evil, but it doesn't grab my attention nearly as much as the rest of Season 13. Alisticious says, I didn't love the Android Invasion all too much. Planet of Evil, on the other hand, is top 5 Tom Baker for me. Anyways, he says, top 5 Tom Baker story for me anyways. So that makes my decision pretty easy. I do love me some Planet of Evil. Joshua says, I'll have to say none of those two, although enjoyable. The obvious one for me would be Pyramids of Mars, Terror of Zygons, Seeds of Doom, and Brain of Morbius, all very creepy and terrifying to this day, and I wish we had a Philip Hinchcliffe-style showrunner for New Who. I honestly think a lot of that was more Bob Holmes. I mean, Philip, of course, had a lot to do with it, but I'm betting you a lot of that darker stuff is Bob Holmes. He liked the macabre and all that, the macabre, however you say it. He loved that kind of stuff. Paul Bailey, one of my fellow YouTuber friends, says, Planet of Evil wins for me. It's a Jekyll and Hyde type of story, but more epic. The antimatter creatures do need a bit of tweaking for the Blu-ray. I do think out of season 13, this story needs the benefit of the CGI. Really? I don't know which story I'd give it to in season 13 for the upgrade on the CGI. I'd have to think about that. Fadaya Corey says, I watched Planet of Fire during the summer and was glued. I was like, Planet of Evil's a different story. And he's like, I meant to say evil. No, he says, I was meant to say evil. And I was like, what? I'm betting he was writing on his phone. Autocorrect gets me all the time when I'm writing on my phone. Stephen Crane, who's one of my top tier patrons, said, I picked Android, even though it was largely terrible because Harry's always been a favorite. I do like Harry a lot. Happy Man 050 says, although I enjoy the Android Invasion more than Planet of Evil, I would have to say that Planet of Evil is better as it has a tighter plot that makes more sense and a better resolution. And Bobby Frackle says, Brain of Morbius, which wasn't one of the choices, but I get you. I do like Brain of Morbius a lot. And I don't hear it called the weakest of the season very often. Again, it's usually the other two's why it wasn't an option. I was just curious between the two weaker stories of the season, which one people liked more, and it ended up in a dead tie. 44% said Planet of Evil, 44% said the Android Invasion, 12% saying it was too close to say. So, if you didn't get a chance to vote in this poll, I would like to know what you think, which one you think is the better story in season 13. So comment down below and let me know. Other things to do, don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out. My goal in 2023 is to hit 1,000 subscribers. It just opens up so many things I can do with the channel, so help me out with that if you enjoy my content. And the thumbs up button, helps me with the YouTube algorithm, the almighty YouTube algorithm. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to support what I do, that helps me pay the bills. I would certainly appreciate that. Several different tiers there to choose from. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month. And even though it says on there that's more just a, hey, thanks for supporting me type thing, I do actually fairly often put videos for them to see as well. Especially like if it's something I know one of my patrons is one of my entry-level patrons, but he tends to send me stuff. So if I do an early access video for something he sent, I always set it where he can watch it too, because I think that's definitely fair to him. So check that out if you'd like. I also want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Finn Perkins, and Colin Coney. I appreciate their continued support as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. And I also have a link to my Amazon wish list down there as well as my Amazon UK wish list. Check those out. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching. And I'm going to leave the camera running while I turn it off. That way you can see some of the He-Man figures right down here. There's another video I did that, and I think it was Lance was like, is that He-Man stuff I see behind you? Yes, it is. I've got Mosquitor, Spikor, Triclops, Skeletor, Evil Lynn in her original toy colors, Faker. Oddly enough, I think my favorite Masters of the Universe figure I've ever owned is my Faker figures. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I had Faker before I had He-Man as a kid. I absolutely love Faker. And my Triclops down here, so let y'all take a look at those real quick. They're pretty cool. Most importantly, as always, thank y'all for watching.